Hi, my name is Anna and I'm the owner of the small business AMarieEcoSew, and this is my Q&A. I've got all my questions and my notes and stuff over here to the side, so if I'm kind of looking off over there, that's why. I've been running this business for about 4 years and full-time for about 2.5. I make eco-friendly reusable products and I'm a one-woman show for the most part, but of course every now and then I get help from friends and family because who can do it all alone? I asked you guys if you had any questions for me on my Instagram stories, and I have all of those here, and I'm prepared to answer them all. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments and I will try to answer them, or maybe I will make another one of these videos someday. The first question is this business what you do full-time? And the answer is yes. Like I said, I've been full-time for about 2.5 years, and I feel so lucky to be doing this full-time, and it's very rewarding, but it can also be very taxing. The main way that it's taxing is that about 70% of my Saturdays are spent working. And usually that is outside, sometimes in kind of extreme conditions. I have set up and worked in below 30-degree conditions outside. A lot of times in the summer, I'm packing up when it's like 98 to 101, 102 degrees because we pack up at noon. So it is about the hottest point of the day. But overall, it is so worth it because like last week, I took almost a whole week off I was sick with something. I don't know what I had, but I was sick and I also kind of needed a mental health week, so I was able to take that time off, and I understand how lucky I am to do that, and it's very, very rewarding to have that. The next question is a two-part question. How did you start your business and how did you decide what to charge? So my business actually started out just making scrunchies. It was during the kind of scrunchie resurgence, and I was also a freshman in college, and my savings was running out fast. I had been saving birthday money and just squirreling away everything that I can since I was like 10 years old, but it was already almost out after my first semester. So I decided to sew up some scrunchies and take them to some craft shows and different in-person events around Christmas time, and I sold them, and I actually made pretty good money doing that. And I actually didn't have my driver's license at this point, so that made getting a traditional job a lot harder, so I had to kind of be ingenuitive a little bit and really think up a way that I could make some extra money. At that point, I didn't have any type of website or anything, and that was December of 2019, or like the winter of 2019. So we all know what happened that following spring. So whenever the pandemic happened and the world was kind of shut down, I started making cloth face masks. During the height of the pandemic, I made so many cloth face masks. I was hand sewing them, and I just made tons of them. But after everything started to open up again, I started making eco-friendly reusable products, and I took them to in-person events whenever things started opening back up, and I actually started my Etsy first. That was the first thing that I started before I opened up my website or anything. And as I kept going, I started to gain a customer base, and people started requesting custom items, and some of those custom items that people requested are now things that I still sell on my website, which is super cool. And to set my prices, unfortunately, I do not have a fancy schmancy equation to share with you or anything. First, I just figured out how much it was going to cost me to make something. So the material cost, how much the materials were going to cost me. And then I also figured out exactly how much time it took me to make that item. And if I was going to make them in bulk, would that be a little bit less time? Usually the answer is yes. You also want to take into account the price of website fees, in-person events, taxes, and of course, how much money that you want to get paid for your time. And that number can change. My prices have gone up, through the years, just with things like inflation. The cost of materials has gone up a lot. And also, once I made this my full-time job, I needed to make a little bit more money. And every now and then, whenever I do a more expensive event, I will raise my prices a little bit temporarily, just because the price to be there is so much that my goods cost pretty cheap. My most expensive products are $20, so I kind of need to raise that a little bit. The next question is, how frequently do you do in-person events? And the answer to that is almost every single weekend. From the months of April to November, I only get a few weekends off. I have a farmer's market every single Saturday from April to October. And of course, I take off at least one weekend for a vacation in the summer. And every now and then I will have something going on that I decide I will not do my farmer's market, but I really try to be there every single weekend because I pay up front. And then in November and December, I'm doing, my cat's laying right by my tripod. So if you see things get a little shaky, it's probably because she's rolling around and moving. She turns 11 tomorrow, so wish her happy birthday. In November and December, I do a lot of Christmas craft shows and craft fairs, events where people are buying a lot of Christmas gifts, and those are really good for me, and it's important for me to go to those. They're some of my biggest events of the year. And I do 1 or 2 events in March, and January and February are pretty much just spent stocking up products. I want to make a lot so that it's less stressful whenever I have my big events where I'm selling through a lot of stuff, or if I have a video get a lot of traction on my social media, I want to make sure that I have plenty of product to be able to accommodate that. Next question, how do you find craft fairs / know if they are worth the time and money? So I know that nobody wants to hear this, but the answer really is trial and error, but I do have a few tips to not have to try and be disappointed so frequently, because I have tried and been disappointed many times. My first pro tip is going into a local crafting Facebook group and asking other crafters that do in-person vendor events what shows they recommend. Usually people are very forthcoming, and the community, you can find a really good community of people. And if you're deciding to try out an event, you can ask the event organizers questions. My favorite ones to ask are, how long have they been running this event? How many attendees are they expecting? Are they advertising, and how are they advertising? That is a big one, because if it's a brand new event and they say they are doing no advertising, the foot traffic is guaranteed to be very little. And sometimes I've been to events where even if you sell to every single person that walks through the door, you will not break even, because that's how little the foot traffic is. Unfortunately, running events like that is not for everybody, and a lot of these big events go through trial and error, so it's good to wait until they've gotten their footing. You can also ask them for a list of vendors that are already signed up and paid for the event, because that can tell you a lot too. In my experience, if the list is full of MLMs and insurance agents and remodeling companies, if you sell a handmade product, you are probably not going to do very well there. You also want to consider the cost of the event. I would recommend, if you're just starting out, not doing a really expensive event. For example, if an 8-hour event costs $400 and all of your products are $2 a piece, you're going to have to sell 200 units just to make the cost of your booth back, and then that doesn't even include how much money it costs to make those 200 units. So really consider how much product you will have to sell to break even, let alone to make a profit. If you need to sell 200 units to break even, but you only can bring or fit on your table or fit in your car 300 units, it probably is not worth it. If you're also a vendor at in-person events, feel free to share your tips and tricks down below. The next question is, what made you start sewing reusable products? I've been interested in sustainability since I was a teenager, and whenever I decided to go away to college, I decided it was time to kick it into high gear. I made as many reusable swaps as I could, and to this day, I still keep most of those habits, especially since I personally make a lot of reusable products. If you guys want a video on all of the sustainable swaps that I personally have made, let me know and I will definitely make that. The true catalyst to the first reusable product that I made was that my mom bought a crocheted reusable Swiffer mop pad alternative on Facebook, and she loved it, but she could not get it clean from her dog hair. So all of the little dog hairs were getting woven up in the fibers, and she just could not get it clean. And I had been sewing, so she asked me to sew her one. It turned out really good, so I decided to list it on Etsy. I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit, and so I was really excited to have an opportunity to even just make a couple extra bucks. But I was really surprised whenever, less than a week into me listing that, I got my first sale, and it just kind of spiraled out of control from there. Like I said, I started to develop a customer base and people started requesting products. Somebody requested I make a reusable alternative to the Swiffer duster, and that's how I started making those. And eventually my product line expanded into what it is today. The next question is a pretty easy one, and I get it pretty frequently. Are you open to requested fabric patterns? And the answer is yes. Actually, another question that I received was asking if I could make more dolphin, seals, sea lions, and turtle patterns. So yes, I always like to know what kind of patterns you guys want. It gets me a good idea of what will sell. A lot of times I just don't really know what's going to do well, and sometimes I put something out and I think that it's going to do really well, and then it does average, and sometimes I think that something's not going to do very well, and then it does really well. So you guys requesting different things is really helpful to me. I can't always fulfill your requests, but I always try. For example, with the dolphins and sea lions and turtles request, most of those patterns start coming out in the spring and summer, so I kind of have to wait until those are available, but I will know to look for them. I also got asked where I get my fabrics from. I get my fabrics from Joann Fabrics. They just have the most variety and they are the most accessible. I'm also able to shop the sales there, which means that I can keep my product prices low. Next question, did you make your website or your Instagram first? I believe that I made my Instagram first, but I didn't start posting regularly until a while after my website was up. Fun fact, it took me 6 months to get my first order on my website after the launch. I still remember when that first order came in, I was laying on the couch watching TV and I was shocked. I got the notification from Shopify. I had never gotten a notification from them before because I had never gotten an order. And I was like, is this a joke? Is this a fluke? Because it had been 6 months. But it was not, and soon after that, more and more orders started coming in, and I actually received my 1,000th order on my website just a few weeks ago, which was so exciting. How old were you when you learned to sew, and who taught you? I was about 17 or 18 whenever I learned to sew. My aunt had come into possession of a sewing machine, and she asked me if I wanted it. My mom taught me some of the basics, but I'm mostly self-taught off of YouTube. I started with upcycling clothes because I was really into thrifting at the time, still am. I tried to buy most of my clothing secondhand. And I made scrunchies whenever the scrunchie craze started. Then when everybody needed cloth face masks, I started making those. And then I started making all of the reusable products that I sell now. I got my serger a few years ago and I bought it refurbished. And I love it. I highly recommend checking out your local sewing machine repair shop for machines. You can get them refurbished and they're really well taken care of. They are cheaper and they're a lot more sustainable. Sorry if the lighting's changing a little bit, the sun's starting to go behind the trees. That was my last question. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question. I had so much fun answering these. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions, leave them for me in the comments, and I will try to answer them as best I can. Follow me on Instagram if you want to be included in future polls and Q&As, and let me know what kind of videos you guys would like to see next. Are you interested in a sustainable swaps video? My website is linked below if you are interested in my handmade reusable products. Thank you all so much for watching and have a lovely day. Bye! And let me know what